Today we are going to attempt to answer the question, who would win, the British Redcoats or the Nazi Waffen SS? Now obviously these two groups never met in a field of battle, them being hundreds of years before and after each other. But it's still fun to theorize. So, we're going to start with the Redcoats. The Redcoats was a term created by the American colonists for the British military. The red uniform was used from the mid-17th century to the 19th century, but for our purposes we're going to be using the forces from the American Revolution, which was roughly 1776. The Redcoats were veterans, having served globally for decades since the 7 Years' War. They had a lot of experience and were highly trained. The weapons the British utilized was a mix of muskets and rifles. The most common were the Pattern 1776 infantry rifle, the Ferguson rifle, and the Brown Bess musket. The common soldier wore next to nothing in terms of armor, just their cloth clothes. However, a musket ball could often bounce off of cloth clothes, or even just graze them. Their fighting style was often line battles, trying to maximize fire from their single-shot muskets in a large group, facing the enemy. Next up we have the Nazi Waffen SS. They were Hitler's elite units who were separate from the standard military. They ran concentration camps and other institutions, but also fought in battles militarily. The SS are responsible for countless war crimes and terrors during World War II. The weapons they employed were numerous. Some include the Kar-98K, which was a bolt-action long-range rifle, the Gewehr 43, a semi-automatic rifle, the MP40, which was a close-range machine gun, the Sturmgewehr 44, which was an assault rifle, and the MG34 and 42, which were powerful machine guns. We used the Kar-98K for our purposes because it was very common amongst the troops. As for armor, they did not wear a lot of armor except for their Stahlhelm helmets. The rest were just standard military uniform. The Waffen SS fighting style was greatly planned out. They thought a great deal about tactics before attacking and were careful. But as a whole, Germany employed the Blitzkrieg, which was to do the following. First bomb the area, then send in tanks, and then follow in with infantry to crush the resistance. These tactics were fast to catch the enemy off guard, so we can assume that the Waffen SS employed this strategy on a grander scheme as well. Now that we've identified the two different groups, we're going to go into the battle. So I will see you guys in the editor in a second. Hey guys, so I do have some bad news on the battle. The two mods that I wanted to use together actually didn't end up going well, and I thought I could extract just certain files and use them, but that ended up being way too complicated. So we are just going to have to speculate what would happen here. I considered just deleting the video, but I already did a lot of research for it, and I already thought it was pretty interesting. So I think I'm just going to give my speculation and show some footage of the individual factions fighting as opposed to them fighting each other. So what I think would happen would be the British would form up in their standard line formation, probably the people in the front of the line crouching and the second line standing. They would march forward to try and meet the Germans in an open field of battle. That's probably what they would attempt to do. But the Germans, being more tactical, they would try and lure them into a woods area. They'd do a lot of guerrilla warfare, similar to like the Patriots in the American Revolution. So the British would march forward, probably inevitably end up in some sort of at least like a town or city area or the woods. That's where the Germans like to fight. And the Germans would probably open up on all flanks, loading their Kar-98Ks pretty fast, getting some pretty devastating results. The British would fire their first line to pretty devastating effects, I think. Maybe not getting a lot of kills, but at least getting casualties. I don't think the musket balls would really kill the German soldiers too much. Maybe, if they're lucky, 2 or 3 kills. But I think they would wound soldiers enough to, need to go back and find a medic. So I think maybe each line fire that they got off would maybe kill 2 or 3, like I said, and maybe 10 casualties each time. But the Germans overall, I think, would begin to dominate with their weaponry and their more advanced modern tactics with that weaponry. Their Kar-98Ks would start to just chew apart the lines, devastating them, lowering the men count, and thus the actual effectiveness of it. And the British aren't going to be able to do anything about that. Their reload time is way too long with the muskets, and they just wouldn't be able to get enough shots off. And the Germans would sort of probably slowly enclose on them, flanking around a little bit more, acting as a squad and less as a line. And eventually the British would just be swarmed and killed off. I doubt any would survive, but the Germans, I think, would definitely have a lot of not subscribers, what? Survivors. Oh man, got YouTube on the mind. So that's my account. I think that the Germans would just devastate the British. It wouldn't be any sort of a fight. Maybe lose a couple men, but not too many. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Also, tell me what group you want me to do next. I could do like Halo versus Star Wars, something like that. That could be kind of cool. But the mods might conflict, so I might have to do more speculation like this time. However, if it is like a mod that's similar to each other, like I could do Stormtroopers versus Clone Troopers, I'd actually be able to show that. Sort of like my last one, Clone Troopers versus Droids. But if they're conflicting mods, it might not necessarily work, and I might get a lot of crashes. Either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed the video. Comment, rate, and subscribe if you did, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.